Stripe alternatives. I'm going to give you some safe and reliable options for your business if Stripe happens not to be the best solution for you. My name is Maria Sparagas. I am the founder of Direct PayNet, and I help thousands of 7- and 8-figure merchants figure out their payment processing to be reliable and effective for their businesses. Today, I want to talk to you specifically about Stripe alternatives. I mean, Stripe is just a huge payment processing company and has really taken over the market. It's sometimes hard to imagine that there are other payment processors that can do the same job, that have equal or better technology than Stripe. But I will tell you that there are several ones that you can look into if Stripe happens not to be the right solution for your business. Now, why might you actually need an alternative to Stripe? If Stripe is kind of integrated to so many things and so many people use it, why would you specifically as a business owner say, I need an alternative? Now, if you have a large business and you're processing a lot of money, Stripe can actually get expensive. And I will tell you that you can find, a payment processor, if you're in the US, for example, that costs at least 1% or less, which can equate to a lot of money. And obviously, we're talking scale here. If you're doing, 7 or 8 figures a month, 1% can really add up to your bottom line, and it can help you reach your goals a lot faster. So working with somebody like Stripe, where, negotiation may not be the easiest, you may want to start looking at alternatives that are more flexible and more business oriented for your business that's doing high volume. Now, if you're a beginner, for example, not in that situation I was just describing, Stripe's platform can actually be pretty complex. There are a lot of options. There are a lot of solutions. There's a lot of configuration. And if you make mistakes, what happens? They can suspend, freeze, or close your account because you didn't configure it properly. They may say that you misled them and didn't give them the right information and so forth. So it is very important that you understand how to navigate this. And unfortunately, another reason is their customer service isn't really there to help you set things up. They're very limited. They have a lot of AI and a lot of canned responses. So if you want that personal touch and you're just getting started, or, if you need a lot of constant customer support, Stripe is really not the best solution for you. You may want to start looking at other options. Now, what are some of these other options, some alternatives to Stripe? Now, the most common ones you'll hear is PayPal, Square, Shopify payments. And these are obviously very good options, and they may work well for your business, but they have the similar business model to Stripe. Now, all these options that I mentioned are well-known and established payment processing companies. So obviously, if you don't want to work with Stripe for whatever reason, the options that I mentioned like Square and PayPal and Shopify payments could be another option. Although you have to keep in mind that these are also very large companies, and some of the difficulties that you may have with Stripe will also relate to these companies. Although they're a little bit smaller on the payment processing side, you may have a little bit more attention. But at the end of the day, if you really want to have, somebody in your corner and you want to be able to speak to a human being and have negotiation with a payment processor, what you want to do is get yourself your own merchant account. So my company, Direct PayNet, actually helps businesses get merchant accounts in the US, in Europe, in Canada, and so forth. Now, it may not be the best option for you if you're starting out, but if you're doing over $10,000 a month, getting a merchant account will really help you scale your business, because you'll be able to work with somebody and get some tactics, learn about new features, things that can really help your business grow and so forth. And once you scale to a decent amount, 6 figures or more, you can start negotiating to get better rates, better fees, and obviously not spend money uselessly for payment processing. So those are your top alternatives. And this is where, you have to decide what is the best option. If you're just starting out, a merchant account will include an application process and something called underwriting, which is where, a bank is looking at your business, looking at your account, and deciding whether they want to support your business. Now, this may sound tedious because obviously with Stripe and PayPal and Square, you just sign up and you're ready to go within hours. And you might say, well, why would I want to do an application? Why do I want to go through the whole hassle? Well, one of the biggest issues with Stripe and these common big box payment processors is they let you get started. And once you start scaling, they review your business. And if they don't like it, they can put it on hold or suspend it very quickly with little notice. And as I said earlier, There's very little customer service that's there. So it puts you in a very precarious position when you're working with these types of payment processors, because you can't actually pick up the phone and call somebody. It's not that easy. So you have to consider, what type of business are you running? Is it a risky business? Is it a business that may get more disputes or more refunds? And then consider perhaps getting a merchant account if you're scaling past $10,000 per month. Now, if you are looking for an alternative, you're like, well, where do I start? How do I pick an alternative? What is the best alternative for me? As I mentioned, you have Square, PayPal, and Shopify payments that have a very standard pricing model. If you're doing 7 figures or more a month, you could actually contact their enterprise level customer service, and you may be able to score a better pricing or better terms, better conditions. So keep in mind, if you're doing high volume, you should try to negotiate with these other companies. If you're working with Stripe, contact PayPal or Square and see what they can do for you, if they can lower your rates and so forth. And at the same time, you can just go back to Stripe and show them what you're getting, and they'll likely match it. So that's one thing, is really looking at pricing, understanding what you're being charged for. For example, Stripe, if you have foreign transactions, they tag on 0.6%. So the fees actually increase quite considerably when you have foreign transactions. So you should be aware of all these things. And when you're looking at other payment processing solutions outside of Stripe, for example, getting your own merchant account, as I mentioned earlier, you want to look at your pricing schedule to see, for example, any monthly fees. You want to minimize those. You want to minimize transaction fees and really get that percentage fee lower than the 2.9% that's currently being offered by Stripe and the other big box payment processors. Now, pricing is obviously one thing, and it's important to get some really good pricing and to be able to scale without, paying excessive fees. But you also have to think of your conversions on your checkout page. Where are your customers coming from, and what payment modes do you need to convert these customers? If you're a US business and you're selling to US consumers, then most of the time, credit cards are pretty much your best bet when you're selling consumer products. You may want to tag on ACH to that, but other than that, there's not really much else that's going to add huge amounts to your bottom line. Now, obviously, if you have foreign customers in different countries, it's important to know which countries and what payment modes, what currencies you need, and really mark that down, list it down, so you can be able to find a payment processor that can adapt to your business vertical and to your customers. So if you need just very simple domestic payment processing methods, no big deal. Most payment processors will offer you that. But if you need specific currencies and so forth, it may not be a pricing game for you. It may be that you need to go to a payment processor that has these features, that has these currencies and so forth. So, make sure you list out everything that you need. And even though it may sound benign, you may be getting, for example, 5% of your transactions from a foreign country, and you may be able to increase your sales in that country if you offer currencies and so forth. So really write down that list and make sure you know what's important for you and your business. Another thing that a lot of merchants and businesses ignore is security and compliance. Now, you can't just go out and sign up to any payment processor that's saying, hey, I will be able to support you and I'll give you a better price, or whatever the case is. You have to make sure that these are compliant payment processors with data security and standards and so forth. Now, most of the time you can look them up on their website. You can see what certifications and what standards they come by. But it is an important thing that a lot of people do forget, that, you shouldn't just willy-nilly trust anybody who says they're willing to support you at a lower price. Really check them out. Make sure you know how long they've been in business. Like, for example, Direct PayNet, we've been in business for over 15 years. We make sure our clients are all processing with PCI compliance and data security standards and so forth. So it's important that you understand whatever payment processor you go to, that they have encryption standards that are up to date, that they have security up to date, and so forth. So those are the main things, obviously, that you should be looking for when you're selecting a payment processing partner. Now, digging further into that, how do you go ahead and find a payment processor that you're going to like to work with, that works with your business? First, your vertical, your business type, your monthly volume. These are things obviously that and some payment processors work better than others in different industries. For example, if you're selling supplements or if you're selling coaching, you may not want to go to Stripe or Square and so forth, because these are not necessarily the best solutions for you, because they tend to be afraid of getting a couple of chargebacks or a couple of refunds and so forth. And in these industries, it's common to get refunds and chargebacks, and there are payment processors who understand these industries and are able to better serve them. Now, what you can do is you can also go look for customer reviews and ask around. One thing I would probably advise against is going onto a Facebook group and asking who is your favorite payment processor, because if you do that, you will get 150 different responses of various people who are affiliates for these payment processors and are waiting to get paid for signing you up. So it's not necessarily the most effective thing to do if you have personal contacts, or if you have, for example, business friends and colleagues and so forth. That's your best bet. And also looking online for reviews. Reddit can be, a yes and no, because there is a lot of people on Reddit that just mouth off on just about anything and complain, but it can give you maybe some information to look at if something comes up often and so forth. So look at online reviews, ask some colleagues, ask some friends around, and try to figure out, who has a good reputation, who has been around for a while, and you're able to trust for your payment processing for your business. Payment processing sounds very benign. It sounds like something you just, sign up and move along in your business endeavors. But this is one of the most important pieces of your business, especially if you're operating online. Accepting credit cards and accepting online payment methods is the lifeblood of your business. So please pay attention to this. Make sure you find a good partner. And if you're working with Stripe right now and things are going well, what you can do is you can really take your time and write down all your requirements and talk to a few people and see who can give you the best offer, give you the best support, and give you the best tech stack for your business. And now in terms of, the platform, how user-friendly, how easy it is to integrate. Now, one thing that's really important, if you're using a third-party shopping cart or CRM, it is important to know if the payment processor that you want to work with integrates very easily into that shopping cart. Now, I will tell you something that a lot of businesses don't know is that, for example, if you're on Shopify or if you're on WooCommerce or one of those big platforms, most of them will accommodate a gateway called Authorize.net or NMI, Network Merchants. Now, these two gateways are simply a software, and most payment processors can connect you directly into those gateways. So it gives you unlimited options, and most CRMs and shopping carts support either Authorize.net or NMI. So you really have a lot of different options of payment processors that you can choose from, and don't let, the technology mislead you and make a wrong decision because you don't think that you're able to work with different payment processors. A lot of times it just seems like Stripe is the only option you can connect to, whereas you may want to look down and look at payment processing options and gateway options, and you'll see one of the ones that I mentioned. And, again, you can talk to different payment processors, and most will be able to plug into one of those two gateways. Now, in the end, if you decide to go ahead and use a Stripe alternative, or maybe just try a backup so you can have two payment options, one of the most important things to do is to test. Set up a dev environment. Make sure that you test every possible scenario of, your checkout cart and so forth, and ensure obviously that things are working smoothly and so forth before you go live. Now, you don't have to go live all in one go. You can have, for example, two payment processors running at the same time, splitting up your volume to make sure that things are going smoothly, and then slowly transition. And I do advise, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you will understand that it's important to always have a backup for something as important as payment processing. So, you may want to keep your other account and put some little volume to it. For example, if you're working with Stripe, you may want to get it to like 10% of your volume and keep it there as a backup should something happen to your primary payment processing solution, and vice versa. If you're working with Stripe, you may want to have a backup merchant account or another processor like Square, where you send 10-15% of your volume to make sure that if anything happens to your Stripe account, you're able to transition very quickly. So it is a great idea to have both. And if you just plan on using one for, if you don't listen to my advice and you plan on using one, at least test and make sure you're running both concurrently to make sure there's no issues before you fully transition over. If you're using Stripe and you have subscriptions or customer data where, you may recharge customers at a later date, or you have upsells and so forth, you will want to get Stripe to give you your Stripe tokens. I have a whole episode about how to get your data out of Stripe and moved on to another payment processor. Now, you are not able to download that directly because you need to be PCI compliant, which is a data security standard. But if you're taking your data, for example, from Stripe to your own merchant account or to Square or whatever the case is, you can contact Stripe and ask them for that data to be transferred to your new account, and they will take care of it. Now, don't take too much time to do that, because it does take 2 or 3 weeks for Stripe to move information over, and they really drag their heels. It's not kind of their first priority to help you move your transactions away, because they're losing business. So you have to keep on top of it. When you make the request, you have to ask for ETAs, you have to follow up and make sure that they get this done. But it is important as much as possible to get your customer data out of Stripe and into your new payment processor, because you need to make sure that you have access to this data and that you have your customers' information. If, for example, you're unable to get that customer information, or if your customers need to resubmit some new information, or something changes in their billing cycle and so forth, it is important to avoid disputes by telling your customers of any changes or anything that may happen to disrupt their service. So don't forget, if you're making this transition, communicate with your customers if there's anything that could disrupt their service, or the dates that they're used to getting charged for your service and so forth. So make sure you do that. That will lower your disputes and obviously lower client churn. So those are very, very important points when you're transitioning away from Stripe and you're looking for alternatives to Stripe. Now, if you are looking to move away from Stripe and looking to test out another alternative, feel free to contact me or somebody from my team at Direct PayNet. I'll put some information down below, and we'd be happy to tell you how you can transition away successfully and really step-by-step guide you through this so it can be as smooth as possible. If you have any questions or you have any comments, please feel free to write them down below and I will get to them as soon as possible. And don't forget to like this episode if you'd like to see more content like this. I always appreciate everybody who's liking and subscribing to my channel. Have yourself a great day.